Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're attending this webinar from. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for taking time out from your schedules to attend this webinar. Welcome again. Today's topic, secure and scalable remote equipment and device access. Remotely accessing your equipment or device, troubleshooting them, or updating configuration or settings or firmware has always been a critical aspect of proactive customer support and improving equipment life for equipment manufacturers and end customers. Security, ease of use, and role-based access control has always been an issue that has plagued both customers as well as equipment manufacturers. Kalki.io remote device access application now brings these capabilities in a highly secure way to you. This webinar highlights the capabilities of the solution and depicts the importance of security and role-based access control as opposed to traditional VPN-based solutions. A brief on Kalkitech. Kalkitech has long been an advocate of open standards and standards-based communication to facilitate interoperability in the true sense. Our solutions enable customers implement mission-critical applications across the smart grid solution spectrum, ranging from substation automation to wide area monitoring, distribution automation to advanced metering infrastructure. To introduce myself, I'm Gautam, and I take care of Europe and Latin America business for Kalkitech AAC offerings. AAC being the US-based company acquired by Kalkitech in 2014-15. A few points to keep in mind before we start off. Since we have a large number of participants, this is a listen-only webinar. However, to facilitate clearing of your doubts or queries that may arise during the course of the webinar, feel free to send us your questions by typing in the window provided during the talk itself. We will try to address most of your queries here or come back to you individually in case we run out of time. The presenter talk would be for 40 minutes, followed by questions selected at random. I would now like to introduce you to our panelist for today's webinar, my colleague, Mr. Nirmal, AVP Product Management, IoT Division. Nirmal has over 15 years of diverse experience in substation automation, communication protocols, and other power utility automation, which include smart grid solutions for distribution networks, DER integration, smart metering, and IoT solutions. Nirmal is now responsible for product management and marketing for our energy IoT offerings. Without any further ado, I would now pass controls to Nirmal, who would take it forward from here. Over to you, Nirmal.
Thank you, Gautam. Hey, good morning or good afternoon. Today, to have a quick look at the secure remote device or equipment access solution from Kalkitech. So, agenda for today's session would be go through the importance of remote device access. What is the Kalki.io remote device access solution? Benefits of the solution for various users, and what are the key features of the solution, and what are the security criteria which you need to consider while designing a remote access solution. We'll also have a comparison study on traditional VPN-based approaches against Kalki.io remote access solution. So just to brush up, what is remote device access? So remote device access is been is kind of a buzzword for quite some time in most of the industries. But considering the overall equipment effectiveness, that is OE, and zero downtime equipment are no longer these buzzwords, and they are critical for any business to succeed. Whether it could be a process industry, or it could be an energy industry, or it could be a renewable generation, or even it could be on the manufacturing industries as well. So machines are prone to failure. You can expect failure on these equipments anytime. So all these equipments will be usually controlled by some kind of microprocessor-based devices. Could be, we call it in different uh, names depending upon the applications, like controllers, protection relays, PLCs, etc. So whenever this failure happens, what happens would be some device expert or equipment expert will go to the site, connect with these equipments on the interfaces which it provides. It could be a Ethernet, or it could be a serial RS-232, or it could be a USB. Connect the tool to the equipment, do the diagnostics and troubleshooting of the devices. So what remote device access provides is a connectivity to these devices from remote location, so that this expert can connect these devices from his office or from his any remote location wherever he prefers to. So for connecting or remote, usually what happens would be there will be an additional edge devices, could be gateway or kind of a routers which will be sitting along with these devices, and connect to an internet or to a private or public WAN network, which will again be connected to the engineer laptop or the engineering PC. So this is what normally happens for remote device access, and what benefits it brings to the table is uh, diagnostics. Sorry, diagnostics and troubleshooting of the devices remotely. Can also uh, read data online uh, and do the monitoring. And once the issues is been identified, I can change the device configuration or even change the device firmware remotely. So the advantage of remote access is reduce the support time and cost, but nobody has to go to the site and update or do the troubleshooting and diagnostics. Thereby improves the productivity. So now let's look at how Kalki.io address some key factors which is required for a secure remote access solution. So Kalki.io device access pack. So that's an application pack which is available with the Kalki.io platform, which is an IoT platform. So basically, it's a cloud-based solution which can be availed by anybody by just coming into Kalki.io and sign up. This basically a service to access the devices or equipments deployed at remote locations. It's a vendor and protocol agnostic solution which can be used to connect any make or model of the assets. So we look at the benefits of Calculator.io remote access solutions to various users. For equipment manufacturers, like OEMs who manufacture these kind of devices, can make use of these services, and they can uh, share the services with their end customers, uh, or even offer it as a new business, maintenance business to the end customers as well. OEM's main responsibility would be after the sales would be provide the maintenance and support for the equipments and devices supplied dur- during the entire lifetime or deployment time of the product. OEMs are obliged to keep the assets healthy and running during the period. By using remote equipment access, they can improve the reliability of the product, and also by provide and also can provide an proactive maintenance in very less time period. So that's the benefits for an OEMs. For asset owners mean uh, important criteria would be to expose the access to the devices securely, and should have more control on the sharing the devices to the outside his facility, outside his factory or his uh, premises. So he should be able to share the devices to on emergency to a specialist or an expert who want to connect remotely and troubleshoot, and thereby he can connect to the devices and do the troubleshooting quickly and easily. So mainly the security is one of the main criteria for the asset owners, as well as the remote access also increase the productivity by restoring the entire system in less time. So this can also be extended to be used for remote monitoring as well, so that the remote monitoring can also be used and the data can be used for the predictive maintenance applications, which can be built on top of the Calki.io as well. For the operations and maintenance service providers, they can make use of these services by optimizing or improving the productivity of the employees by looking at different equipments remotely from a central locations, thereby reducing the time and cost on travel and maintenance activities. So again, O&M service providers benefits will be the productivity of this of the uh, device specialist or whoever is expert who is looking into the devices, and also provide an on-time actions, proactive actions, thereby helping improving the productivity of the entire assets. So now let's look at the overall architecture. So here you can see that there are various types of devices out there. I've just put a single device category. It could be any devices like meters, protection relays, or it could be controllers, sensors. Any type of equipments out there should be able to do remote access and do the troubleshooting and diagnostics or update remotely. So devices or equipments installed at remote location can be accessed from a device-specific tool uh, from the remote location, regardless of the protocols or make and model of the devices which it needs to access to. User can access the devices as if the devices is connected to the engineering PC directly. Calcule remote connected tool, that's a small service uh, which can be installed on an engineering PC, can extend the tool connection to the remote device through a secured channel created from the tool up to the end devices through Calki.io service. Calki.io will be a cloud service, uh, which can be a public cloud or it could be an on-premise cloud as well. So Calki have a role-based access control built in, where users are created in hierarchical roles, uh, and each user has got provided with the role identity and the permission set which he has in the organization. So whenever any users connect his engineering PC through any tool, through any device-specific tool, and try to access a device, Calculator validates the user permissions and allow access to the devices only if that user has got the access to that particular devices he's trying to connect to. And there is also provision to have time-bound sharing of devices, which helps asset owners to share access to devices or the equipments only when necessary, or when there is any fault or any critical incidents happen in the site, only during those time, or maybe it could be a maintenance schedule, or in only those time slot the devices should be able to access by the an external uh, entity. So here there's a time based control access mechanism built in the calculator. So to talking about the connectivity options, so here you can see that there are various types of connectivity or various types of devices rather, which has got interfaces like an Ethernet interface, or it could be a serial interface, or it could be a USB interface. There are multiple devices in a site, and all the devices needs to access from remotely. So what typically we can do is it could be an edge devices, it could be a standard off-the-shelf hardware based upon Intel or ARM or a PowerPC with a SyncConnect software installed on that hardware. So SyncConnect can um, connect with these devices and expose the connectivity to devices through to the Calculator.io through a public or a private WAN network securely over a TLS 1.2 tunnel. That is a secure tunnel which will ensure that there is no there cannot be a man in the middle or spoofing attack on any packet should be transferred from the site to the engineering PC. So this is one of the options for deploying the or connecting the devices, multiple devices in the site to the remote device access service. And another option would be there is a sync proxy service. This is basically a small software stack. We provide the software stack of sync proxy free of cost, and it can be either installed on the end devices, like for example a programmable controllers, or could be a programmable devices, even a PC. You can use a PC with a sync proxy, and it can be used to connect with the devices in the field. Sync proxy, what it will does is it will create a secure TLS 1.2 tunnel from the field up to the calculator, and that even that tunnel can be assisted from a user from his PC through the device specific tool. Another deployment we see commonly is kind of there could be an industrial or corporate network which will be exposed only through a industrial or corporate firewall. In this kind of a scenario, you could have a standard industrial hardware, could be a PC or standard edge devices with a sync proxy service installed in it. So sync proxy service can extend the connection through the intranet or the industrial network or a corporate network to the edge devices. So uh, Symposi will extend this connectivity from the end devices to the calculator.io over a secure tunnel. So these are the various types of deployment scenarios we come across. So in all the scenarios, users will not have any difference on the configurations or any settings. Like we discussed, user will normally open the device-specific tool, configuration tool or the engineering tool in his PC and connect with these devices as if it is connected locally to his engineering PC. Whether it could be a serial device or whether it could be IP device or a USB device, a tool will understand that the device is locally accessible on the engineering PC. So that is mainly facilitated using the remote connector application, which is installed on the engineering PC. Okay. So let's look at the key features of the solution. So regarding the connectivity, the Calculator device access is independent of the communication protocol which the device or the tool supports. So it is independent of the communication media as well. That is, you can connect any devices which is communicable on serial or USB interfaces to the remote connector solution. It's flexible and scalable, unlike VPN-based solutions. We'll have a detailed look at how Calculator solution is compared with a traditional VPN-based approach in coming slides. Again, it is adaptive for the different communication technologies like the GPRS or even LAN or low power radio or VSAT communications can be used for connecting your devices to remotely. So there's an intelligent or rather you can say adaptive um, layer built in the calculator IO, which does the buffering and fine tuning of the communication packet uh, by adapting to the lowest bandwidth available in the network. And regarding the talking about the configuration part is fully user-friendly configurations. There is no configuration which needs to be done at the field device side. That is the device edge devices or the sync proxy, or even at the remote connector. All the configuration is done at the central location in Kalki.io. So the configuration is done centrally, and user can and all the central configuration can be accessed from a web browser. So user can directly go to the web browser, log in the web browser, get the device you want to connect to, click on the device, and initiate the remote connection procedure, which will automatically launch the remote connector in his laptop and establish a secure tunnel from his laptop or the engineering PC up to the end devices, if that user has got the privilege to access the device. So as plainly click and configure workflow. Once all the systems are set up and ready in the central system, user need not even worry about the any configuration settings to be done at the his laptop as well as at the remote location. And since it is TLS outbound connection, or rather we can say for as far as calculator is concerned, it's kind of inbound connection to the cloud. So all the connection from the engineering PC as well as to the from the devices will be initiated from the device to the calculator IO, from the PC to the calculator IO. So it's a TLS 1.2 tunnel which is initiated from the remote location. So there is no complexity in configuring the firewalls or the networks because there is no port forwarding or any router configuration settings to be done in the firewall side. So it's a IT. You don't need an in-depth IT expert to set up the system. So that is again one of the advantage of using the Kalki.io platform. And there's a lot of security options built in. So we have a little look at the security options in the slide. Uh, so there's an access control and management mechanism built in the platform, which is the platform nothing but the Kalki.io, where you have got a role-based access control mechanism, where you can any user can access any devices only if that user has got the privilege to connect with that devices. So if all the control of the and management of the access permission can be centrally managed in the Kalki.io role-based access control mechanism. And all the role-based access control is centrally managed using public key infrastructure. To access the web portal of Kalki.io, you can optionally enable token-based two-factor authentication. That's a company settings you can enable on the company level. If it is enabled, you need to enter the password as well as token to access the web service, the web page of the Kalki.io. And there are a lot of other security measurements taken out, like a lockout of devices. Like if devices has already been accessed by any of the users, that device will be locked out and it will not be availed for any other user access. And if that in particular user is not is been accessing the devices and not actually utilizing this network for a configurable time period, automatically that connection will close and the device will be released by the platform. And talking about the confidentiality packet, this is a TLS 1.2 tunnel. That is an encrypted tunnel created from the field devices and also from the engineering PC. Thereby, it prevents the man in the middle or a data spoofing at any part of the network. And it's also independent of the network service provider security. So we don't need to rely on the internet service providers, VPN, or any other security measurements. It takes care of the end-to-end from the device up to this engineering PC. Connections are secured with the TLS 1.2 tunnel. For the ensuring the integrity of operations, like we want to ensure that it's any devices which is getting connected with Kalki.io or any user which is connecting to the Kalki.io on the other end are really the user which has been configured or device which has been configured in the Kalki.io. To ensure that Kalki.io issues the X509 certificate based upon the PKI standard to devices as well as for the users. So it will ensure the users and devices which it's getting connected to, and we're getting the access to the devices as well. With thereby ensuring that the total assets and the systems is safe and can be used only by the people who can have really access to the network. Thereby there will not be any maloperations on the devices or the system. And on the security point, there's a is 24/7 available. Since it is a cloud-based solution, so multi-region deployment is possible. You can deploy it in one part of the globe, one instance, and the redundant instance can be deployed in another part of the globe. So thereby ensuring that the entire system is redundant, and if there is any disaster happened at one of the region, automatically all the load will be shared to the redundant server in the different region to ensure that the entire system is available 24/7. And for tracing of all the actions from the users, there is a audit trail log which is being provided in the local PC means the engineering connector, remote connector, which is installed on the local PC, keeps track of the all the logs, which are devices it is getting connected to, which are the users it is getting access to. All the engineering PC specific logs will be available and maintained by the Calculator remote connector. And Calculator central system also maintains a log of all the devices and all the user access to and from the network. So there's a this Calculator log has got all the information of all the devices and the engineering PC user tools which get access to. And there's also log in the remote connector PC where the communication from the PC will be logged and traced back for any troubleshooting purpose in future. If you compare with the VPN-based solution, this is a kind of a commonly used solution for a remote access. So VPN-based solution major drawbacks it provides is a network-specific access control. Means if your engineering PC is connected to a VPN and your device is connected to a VPN, if you have multiple devices, you can ideally connect to any of the devices regardless of the permissions or the users settings which you have provided. So virtually you can access any of the devices out there in the network. But in case of Calculator.io, it's a device-specific access control, so all the devices cannot be accessed by everyone. So that control is being managed and maintained by the role-based PKI infrastructure built in the platform. Again, the same level, the user level access is already also provided, and in the VPN there's no role-based access control. So it's like there's a hierarchical roles and identity which can be built in the Calculator.io, where these hierarchical roles can be based upon the organizational level, where on top level you can access all the devices in the network. On top bottom you can separate the devices or separate the access to the different uh, locations to different groups or different teams, and only that team will have the access to those devices. Those kind of control can be built using the Calculator.io service, and VPN as service that will not be available. And the VPN solutions mostly requires a service provider hardware. That means the edge gateways or edge devices, which needs to be installed along with the equipment or the devices is a mandatory in case of VPN-based solution. But in case of Calculator SaaS, the third-party hardware is optional. The hardware is optional, so you can virtually install the sync proxy service on the end devices if end devices has got the provision to install the application, or even you can use a standard PC at the site, or you can use a standard boxes like an Intel box or Intel Edge gateways or Raspberry Pi, for example. Those devices can be used to connect with the Calculator.io using the sync proxy application, which can be installed on those third-party hardware. And there's a limitation on the connections which VPN can access to, or VPN can have. Like a number of nodes VPN can have depends upon the IP address and the subnet it can manage. But in case of the Calculator SaaS, since it is a certificate based and it's a TLS based, virtually there is no dependency on the number of devices or number of users which can be connected to the platform. And on VPN network, once the connection is established, there is no more control on the network or you cannot have a adaptive network mechanism built for to work to make your system work on a lossy network, for example, a cellular network, or it could be a low bandwidth VSAT network, would be highly challenging in case of a VPN network, VPN based solution. But in case of Calcio SaaS based solutions, there's an adaptive protocol buffering happening in the platform, which helps in better performance on a lossy network. Talking about the user experience, user has to either know the IP address, or VPN IP address of the devices, or some there could be different VPN or port IP address as well as port number of the devices has to be remembered and needs to be used to connect with the devices. But in case of Kalki.io, all the devices will be available on a web browser from the cloud, and there are various ways to identify the devices depending upon the groups, configurable roles or configurable groups user can made available in the platform, and depending upon the widgets and data tables, there are various ways to identify a device and connect to a devices uh, directly from the web portal. So the access and identification of devices will be easy in the Calculate.io solution. And in case of VPN-based solution, there's a limited option to monitor the status of the remote PC. You cannot uh, we cannot have the information on what is happening at the network level, how many packets is being transferred, what are the latency of the network. All the diagnostics and monitoring of the network is option is limited in case of VPN-based solution, but in case of Calceo SaaS-based solution, you have a Calceo remote connector installed in the PC. That remote connector provides you the number of packets it's been transferred to, and what is the time to leave for the their connectivity status, and how long the connection will be retained, etc. All the network monitoring can be done from the local PC in the remote engineering connector. And as we discussed in the earlier slides, there's an audit trail available both at the central location and at the local PC engineering remote connector in case of the Calculator.io, but in case of VPN, the audit trail option is very limited, and we don't have the information of who is connecting and which device is connecting to that kind of information will be very limited in case of a VPN established VPN network. So talking about the applications and the devices, virtually possible applications which solution can be connected to. It can be used in the process industries, can be used in manufacturing, power and energy, or it could be in EV charge controllers, it could be in renewables, water treatment. Virtually is protocol agnostics and device agnostic. So you can use this solution for any kind of applications, and you can connect any type of devices like a PLCs or RTUs, that's remote terminal units, inverters, protection relays, controllers. Any type of devices can be connected to the entire network. So that's all on the webinar for today. So if you have any questions.
Thanks a lot, Nirmal. We've already got a few questions from the participants, so let's move on to them. Remote configuration of DLMS meters, is that possible using the solution?
Yes, of course. So, since I mentioned it's a protocol agnostics solution, so you can use these Calceo remote access to connect any types of devices including the DLMS based base meters as well. But to add to this point, so DLMS meters usually do the remote configurations or the firmwares update using the DLMS protocol itself. So in addition to the remote connector, there is one more provision available in the calculator.io. There's a DLMS a driver available in the platform, which can be used to configure your meters or even update the firmware of the meters directly from the uh, portal. Even you don't need to use the engineering connector or the meter specific tool if the meter is fully compliant with the LMS standard. Calcio itself can be used to configure and update the meters.
Okay. Okay. On the second question, you had mentioned about Sync Connect as well as Sync Proxy. So you said that it works on third-party hardware. So what is the minimum requirements of this hardware to load Sync Connect or Sync Pro? Yeah, this is the slide.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, there are two things. Yeah, sync proxy is a just proxy service. So basically what it does is we need to issue a certificate from calculator.io. The certificate will be used by the proxy, and that will be submitted by the proxy and established a tunnel with the calculator.io. For a sync proxy to run, you can run it on a very minimal footprint devices. For example, around or with a device with around 32 MB or maybe a 16 MB device can be installed with a sync proxy service. We provide a stack of the sync proxy, it's an ANSI library where you can, it will be Linux based thing. You can port it to any of the OS or any of the environment you want. Um, that's the requirement for a sync proxy or hardware requirement for resource requirement for a sync proxy. But in case of sync connect comes with all the protocol libraries, etc. So this can be also used for connecting the devices for the monitoring, online monitoring as well. So sync connect, since it's called the protocol drivers, so to run this sync connect on your in edge devices, or it could be on your PC, you need to have minimum 128 MB RAM and around 130 MB disk size.
Okay. Now, third question was about application areas where your solution has been tested and proven. So in the last slide, you had mentioned that a lot of application areas, but where has
Okay.
Kalki.io been used and proven?
Yeah. Regarding the application areas I mentioned, is even protocol and the tool or the device agnostic. Actually, it can be used on any of the application. But we have done most of the projects in the power or energy industries, where we have already connected tested and validated with more than 80 number of IEDs or protection relays and controllers, bay controlling units. There are different types of equipments out there in the field which can be remotely assessed from the calculator.io or from the Identity connector. So that is kind of proven and widely deployed solution. But we are also doing the pilots on the other industries as well, especially the solar and the EV, where some new projects are coming up. And manufacturing also, there are some few pilots which we have deployed.
Okay. There's another question which has come in about the public cloud and the on-premise option. Can you explain the various options there?
Okay. Okay, so Kalki.io is basically a SaaS-based solution. So you can install Kalki.io. So there's already a public Kalki.io service already available. You can come to, you can browse www.kalki.io You can come there and sign up and create an account and use that account to connect your devices or do the remote engineering. So that's a public cloud deployment. In addition to that, there's mm, uh, three more deployment option. That's a private deployment options. First private deployment option is again installed on cloud infrastructure like AWS, but specifically for that customer, for that particular user who wants to have a independent uh, service, software as a service deployment for his particular infrastructures. So we provide a Kalki.io on the AWS account of the customer, and the customer can manage and maintain that network or the software. That is the first private deployment option. Second private deployment option is um, customer provides the hardware, the servers which needs to be installed on. We install the Calculator.io on premise on those hardware and deploy that on the customer premises. And the third private deployment option is we ship the hardware and the software. Software is pre-installed on the servers, and we ship with as an appliance the server plus of Calculator.io software pre-installed, and user can just power up and configure it and use it. So these are the three private deployment option and one public deployment option of Calculator.io.
Okay. I guess those were the questions, Nirmal. Thank you, Nirmal, for the detailed and informative talk. Thank you to all the attendees for taking time out to attend this webinar. If you have any additional questions or queries, please feel free to drop us an email. Our email ID is marketing@kalkitech.com. We will also be sending the recording of this webinar shortly to all the participants. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.